Hi, all. I hope you've had a lovely weekend. As I do every week, I just wanted to review this week's task list and let you see where to find it. As you can see, this is for section 25408, but it will look the same for both sections, as in the task list and everything that we do is exactly the same. So you would go into this week's task list, which is week 5. I can't believe it's gone by so quickly. And I just wanted to make sure that we all knew what's due and what I really, really want you to concentrate on this week. So as you know, or you should know, you should have been reading when I was a Puerto Rican, and that's something that I know I put on the task list for last week and the week before. And the informal textual response is due the 6th of October, so it will be due this weekend. Again, I hope that you enjoyed the book. I think it's a beautiful book, and I'm so looking forward to looking at those responses. Then you have a choice article. I hope that those of you that have been a hunter for a while understand that the way that we've organized the master's degree in education is that we hope that you include choice in all of your lessons through text sets, which I know that you read about last week. So I also want to review a little bit of that today. I've started to grade those, and I think for the most part, most of you really understood what a text set is supposed to do, and basically it's rethinking about the way we plan. So we should all be planning thematically, so around an essential question that you're having students consider through various different texts. So when we create a text set, it's supposed to get us to read that anchor text, which should be the more difficult text. So that doesn't mean that we have to shy away from difficult text, but you all know that you have different levels of readers and some very struggling readers in your class. But you're expected to teach to the entire population at your school, obviously. And there are ways to teach that. So you build up to that anchor text through a text set series where they're looking at thematically that same essential question, but you're just going at it from different levels of text. And text sets include pictures, cartoons, obviously images, which are pictures, and then picture books, which I know sounds so strange to us, but high school students really enjoy them. It should include informational text. If the text is fiction, then there should definitely be a nonfiction piece in there. But the nonfiction piece or the other stories shouldn't be at the same difficult or higher lexile level of that anchor text. What you're doing is that you're creating different access points. So I think for the most part, everyone's done a really good job of understanding those. Some of you are in schools that are already implementing that kind of planning, and you're lucky. And if you're not, then you should be thinking about planning that way, because it really is kind of guaranteeing a seat at the table for your students, for those students that are really struggling, because maybe they're still going to have a very difficult time understanding that anchor text, less so when they become better readers through all of the reading strategies that we practice here and that then you implement in your classroom. But they can still have the discussions in groups because now they've seen a picture book, they've watched a video, there are images that you have discussed, they've read this informational text that actually gave them more information, and now even though maybe they can't fully participate in the anchor text, they are still participatory in your class. So I think that has come through from what I've read in your responses thus far, so I think you've done a really good job in there. So again, you have a choice article. You can either read Motivating Young Adolescents by Rick Wormelli, and there's a link here, but it is also in the reading section of the classroom, or the icing or the cake And then the way to respond to those is by clicking one of these. So if you've read Wormelli, that's the response that you would go to. So the Wormelli response, just so that you can see it very quickly, looks like this. And then you have the icing or the cake response, which again is very similar. So just make sure that based on what you've actually read, you choose the correct way to respond. Again, this is a quick read, quick responses. And then I'm just having you start to think about choose it, try it. So one of the things that Hunter, as you know, is famous for is our learning lab, and also making students constantly implement the strategies that we are building on together. So this is just one more chance for us to look at a strategy that has not been covered in class, and something preferably that's not pair share or something that you do often or that's been done, and it can't be something covered in class. So it can't be close reading or collaborative strategic reading or reciprocal teaching or text sets. But there's plenty of you to choose from in the core and in the Rob textbook. So here, what you will find is basically the assignment itself with all of the instructions. You're choosing one technique that has not yet been emphasized in class, and it should work for your content area. Of course, if you're teaching English language arts, it should work for you as well. I'm expecting you to do a little research outside the about the technique and maybe additional resources that you think might be helpful to us. And the next thing you do is that you try it out with students. So try it out in a small group. Try it out in your classrooms. Whatever students you have access to, if you have access to students, obviously you have access to your student in Learning Lab, try it out with them. But it does not have to be taped. We just want you to try it out so that in your reflection about this lesson and you teaching it to us, you've kind of worked out the kinks and you can reflect about how it went. You can choose to work with a partner on this, which is perfectly fine. I'm sorry, my dog's barking in the back. You can choose to work with a partner, or you can do this alone. Either way is fine, as long as when I receive the assignment, I see both names are on there. And then here you have the rubric, which tells you exactly what I'll be looking for when I grade these choose it, try it assignments. So the next thing you need to do is, once you've thought about it and looked through the Rob and the core textbook, is that you need to click here and actually sign up. The video, so what you're actually going to be uploading when you upload this is just going to be a link to YouTube or whichever other means you can share it with me. So it would be a video just like the one you're seeing me now. You can record it with your computer or your phone. If you're recording it with your phone and you want to have a PowerPoint like right next to you so that you teach us a strategy, that's it. That's the only thing I'm looking for. And the absolute maximum that it could be should be 10 minutes. I really think that they should be about 7 minutes. So let's keep them at about 7 minutes. And then I've given you a way to sign up. So if you're in the big section, we'll have to have 3 to 4 presentations per week. So you come in here and you put in the date that you're, basically if it's on the 13th, you just put in your name. If it's on the 20th, you put in your name. If it's on the 27th, you put in your name. I see that some of you have already started to do that. So Deb is doing morphemic analysis. Salinas is doing core teaching, reading sourcebook chapter 15, paragraph shrinking, which, by the way, is one of my favorite strategies that we ever cover. So great choices so far. So that's it for the choose it, try it. What this will do, it will enable us to, throughout the rest of the course, get introduced to a different strategy, but it's not like a litany of videos that we have to watch. We're just watching 2 or 3 videos per week, okay? And then you have this week's presentation, and it's a wrap up to a certain degree of what we've done so far. So if you click on it, you will see that it discusses the fact that comprehension builds on speed and accuracy of decoding, reading, fluency, vocabulary, word knowledge. And the most important thing around comprehension is building habits of mind, right? And it discusses how it affects us, right? When we fail to teach comprehension skills, we're going to see it across all content areas. If students don't read well, can't comprehend what's being asked of them, they will not be able to perform in civics or U.S. history or any of the content areas, math, anything. So far, we've covered reciprocal teaching, collaborative strategic reading, and close reading. And close reading with text sets, which I think is the most important portion of close reading. And you would have seen in the raw book, and you've seen in the strategies that every one of these strategies is really asking students to think before they read, during the reading, and after they read. It's all about making sure that your students are engaging with text in a way that they really never have before. Many of the students in your classes, many of the struggling readers are struggling not because they can't decode, even though you will have students that cannot decode, and we will get there. But many of them are struggling because they can read an entire passage, but know nothing about what they have just read, because they do not know how to interact with the text. And basically, that's what these strategies are teaching them to do. It's what all good readers do. You and I do it. We question the text. We make predictions. We take notes. Our students don't do any of these things. So it's about making sure that they do all of those things. And of course, we're always working towards this gradual release model. And that is that you're teaching them reciprocal teaching or collaborative strategic reading. I saw in your answers last week that there are 2 forms of teaching collaborative strategic reading, and many of you said that you saw difficulty in having an expert group, and I agree. If you have a very large class, an expert group is going to take a long time. You can do method 2, which involves having students, you modeling the roles, and then having these students try out those roles for 3 or 4 weeks at a time. So one student will be the click person, the click expert, and one student will be the clunk expert for at least 2 or 3 weeks. And then you can rotate those roles. And eventually what you want them to do is that they're going to come to these strategies. They're going to come to reading with these strategies already. They would have created these habits. So wait, something was confusing. There was a clunk there. Oh, what do? I try to read if I try to look for context clues. I question the reading. I reread this section. So these are things that our readers don't do. So once they create those habits of mind, then they will be able to do it. Graphic organizers. I have to say that I have some reserve around graphic organizers. There are plenty of them online, but I also think that sometimes we overuse them. I tend to use graphic organizers that I've adapted for the lesson that I'm teaching, or one that really makes sense. For example, this graphic organizer here that was so commonly used around essay writing, I've always found to be really ineffective. But Venn diagrams, on the other hand, if you have students that really understand what a Venn diagram is trying to tell them, can be very effective. So do use graphic organizers because it helps students visualize and organize the information in the text. Generating questions is extremely important. So to facilitate students' ability to generate higher level questions, you can provide question stems. At the beginning, when they question their own reading, they usually write their questions, right? It's questions that they found right there in the text. But you have to get them to think more deeply. And these question stems are definitely one way to do that. So, and other strategies that come directly from the core book, which is the use of SQ4R method: survey the text, formulate questions, read, record notes, recite, and reflect. Again, other reading strategies that we can use with our students. And here is another example of how to do that on this slide. Again, before reading strategies: activating prior knowledge, assessing prior knowledge, building background. So as you'll see in today's presentation, this idea of building background and assessing and accessing prior knowledge is really easy to do through visual thinking routines. And that's the next thing that I'll show you today. Again, you have plenty of reading strategies to choose from. The ones that we have covered thus far in terms of collaborative strategic reading, reciprocal teaching, are the ones that are most evidence-based, and everything else builds from that. So we always teach our students to predict, locate details, summarize, question, connect, visualize. So reading is thinking. Reading should be thinking. And having them understand how to display their thinking. Another reading strategy that I love is somebody but wanted but so then. I don't know if you've seen this, but again, it makes them question what's going on. Somebody, who's the main character? Sometimes they've read a passage, an entire novel, unfortunately, and they don't even know who the main characters are. So something as simple as this can reorient them to reading with a purpose. Wanted, what did the character want? So for example, I don't know how many of you are teaching English language arts or history, but if you were going to teach something like the short story 11 by Sandra Cisneros, it's a 3-page story. It's a very easy read, and you can work exactly like this using this chart. So if you've read it, if you haven't, it's one of the best stories I've come across for struggling readers, to get them in the habit of asking themselves this question, okay, these questions. I don't have time to go through the entire PowerPoint, but the rest of it is really self-explanatory. The importance of having genre discussions, especially the beginning of high school. They should know what genre is, and it's important that they know what genre is, because as readers, our minds are set up in a way that if we know what genre we're about to read, we automatically have certain expectations around that type of reading. So if we know that we're reading poetry, we have certain expectations. We're expecting it to rhyme. It's going to be in stanzas. So we come into the reading with certain expectations that actually help comprehension. So you should be having genre discussions. If you're reading historical fiction, there's certain expectations that you can make and that you have going into these as good readers, and your students should begin to have those as well. Again, going over text features, I know that you think that some of these students have been discussing text features since they were in grade school and middle school, and they need to continue to discuss them because they don't know them well enough. And again, a little bit more on text features and teaching them how to help themselves by paying attention to those text features. And then, again, this PowerPoint, I expect you to just go through and take notes. It should be a review, and it should be a reminder of things that you could be doing with your students. Now, this is one of the strategies that I think I enjoyed most when I taught, and I highly advise you for this to become kind of like your go-to. There's so many different things that you can do using visible thinking routines, and there's a great website which I'll show you in a second. So basically, visible thinking routines make your thinking visible to your students. So it's a way to make them more metacognitive. You can introduce individual visible thinking routines, apply them, and I'll show you exactly what that is. So when you think about the reading process, the things that you do to ensure that students are comprehending the text is that you're being metacognitive. And that's what these routines are actually asking them to do, right? So it's basically thinking about your thinking, which we all know. Basically knowing when we understand something and when we really don't understand something. And this makes your thinking more visible, these specific routines that I will show you. So these are the core routines, which I think pair, share, most of you have already know, but then we have many other wonderful routines that are part of the Visible Thinking website. So in Think, Pair, Share, the teacher poses a question to students, asks students to first take time and think about the question, and then students turn and talk and discuss their thoughts. So this is great for starting a new unit on something. If you're covering the Great Depression, you can ask them, well, what do you think the Great Depression was about, and generate responses from them and get an idea of what they actually know. And then you have a video that discusses Think, Share application. And then you have some other examples of routines. There's one that is Think, Puzzle, Explore. So what do you think you know about this topic? What questions or puzzles do you have, and how can you explore this topic? So again, using the Great Depression, it's a way of starting, it's a way of getting them to think even before they start the lesson, and show you what they already know. See, Think, Wonder is a great technique. Basically, it begins with a picture. So you would show them a picture, such as this, and you would ask them, what do you see? What do you think about that? And what does it make you wonder? And in the See, Think, Wonder routine, the teacher is really not providing the answers. You're just letting the class discuss, and it should lead to, as I said, so thinking about their thinking and discussion. It's a way to generate interest in a topic, discussion, engagement, because we can all talk about what's going on in this picture. Again, another See, Think, Wonder picture and activity. And the rest of the slides on this PowerPoint go through some of the most important visible thinking routines. But once you've gone through the PowerPoint, what I really want you to do is explore some of these routines. So I've given you a link to the core routines directly from the Visible Thinking Routines website. And I've also given you routines, or a way to access routines that really go beyond just the core ones. So you can go through here. There's an explanation game, headlines, question starts, Think, Pair, Share, which we just discussed, 3, 2, 1, which I love. So I want you to explore this website. That's the objective of having given them to you, okay? Explore the VTR routines that make the most sense in your content area, and choose one, just one, to share via the Google Classroom forum. So I've created a question, and all you have to do is share how and why you would use that particular VTR. So I'm thinking it would probably be about 1 paragraph, nothing more than that. And then here you have a reminder to start drafting your lesson, your unit plan, which is due December 15th. So if you haven't already done that, make sure that you do that. And finally, you have this week's exit ticket. So if you click on here, you'll see um, it's again related to visible thinking routines. So select one of the visible thinking routines and complete a one-sentence lesson plan telling me how you would use it. Again, this is a great strategy for your own students to use as exit tickets. And I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover for this week's task list. I apologize for my barking dog. And I hope that you have a lovely rest of the week. And make sure that if you have any questions whatsoever, that you text or email me. As most of you know that actually text me, I am very responsive via text and usually answer within an hour at least. Okay, take care.